What's up, guys? Keyshawn Uchia here, back at you with another new OT Universe What If, and this is going to be, well, a one-time take. So if y'all guys like, please hit this up to 20 or 30 or 40 likes, and I will make another part to this. But this will be a take of me being in the, well, let me tell you the what if. This will be, what if I was in the SCP Foundation as Keyshawn Uchia? What if I was in the SCP Foundation, you could say. Now, this is going to be a take, just the first time go. If y'all guys like this and y'all want to see another part, hit that love in the comments and also, get this up to 20 likes or higher, to do that. But this is, I thought of this idea and I really wanted to put myself in the SCP Foundation with the other creatures and stuff, as a powerful, universe galaxy god and see how things would go. Now, if I do say SCP things wrong and say their abilities wrong and what they can do, please, don't get mad at me. Just make sure to go in the comments and tell me, like, oh, I got this SCP wrong and this SCP does this. Because I know there is 1,000 people who read SCP Foundation, files of other SCPs and stuff and know what they can do and stuff. And also, I know they're a big fan of the SCP Foundation. So, for no disrespect, if I get anything wrong, just let me know in the comments and I will correct myself the next time I do another part if y'all want to. Now, in no further ado, and all the warnings, this will be, let me give another out warning. This will be an 18 plus. This will contain blood, gore, maybe sex, possibly that disgusting things, and possibly D-class getting ripped apart and getting, you could say, mutilated by other SCPs that y'all know of. If you further ado, let's get going. This is What If I Was an SCP Foundation. Now, we start off with pretty much Keyshawn Uchida, the Galaxy God. Pretty much looking at other universes, and he sees the SCP down. He been researching, or you could say, getting interested in the SCP Foundation. Every time he looks at another alternate universe, he sees the SCP Foundation always there. It doesn't matter where they are. They always recreate themselves and serving, containing, and protecting the people from their own good. They capture many creatures in other alternate universes. If they're evil, they're good, or they're just, you could say, kids and teenagers. They will always protect the Earth from the end of the world and always protect humans from the monsters in the unknown. Now, this is where Keyshawn Uchida says he's gonna go. He's gonna see what the SCP Foundation has and gets interested. So he begins to, you could say, dress fresh and begins to go to the SCP Foundation. Now, of course, he knows that he can't just go in there up swass. So he thinks of something. And this is what he does. He walks up to one of the, you could say, secret agents and say, "Excuse me, sir." Which you could say one of the agents says, "Yes." And begins to do something, you could say, magical. Creating a life, buddy. Creating Bunny from nothing. And he pretty much says, "Am I accepted to be in the SCP Foundation?" Now this is where the agent pretty much take Keyshawn in. Pretty much handcuffed him because, terrified. And pretty much brought him in the SCP Foundation. Now, of course, Keyshawn is getting questioned by one of the scientists, which Keyshawn looks at the scientist and she's pretty much, we're going to say her name is Dr. Alex. Now, Dr. Alice is pretty much new to the Foundation, but she been getting her stuff done, and she comes to sit to Keyshawn to talk to him and ask him questions. And the first question she asks is, where did you come from, or who are you? And Keyshawn politically smiles and says, "My name is Keyshawn Uchida, the Galaxy God. Now, I have other gods I watch over too, and I create other universes. And also, I've been watching y'all universe, and I saw many of other universes of y'all, but I got curious to this one, because this one is quite, you could say, new." Now, this is where she's, you could say, a little bit shaking, but also asking the second question. Why did he, show his powers off to the agent? Which Keyshawn smiles and says, well, I just wanted to see this Foundation. Now, I know y'all not going to be letting me go, or anytime soon, or let me get my freedom, y'all have a nice good a good tainment for me to try to tame me, because y'all don't know if I'm a safe heater or nuclear, the end of the world. Am I right? Now this is where she's, you could say, stuttering on words and saying, uh, third question, which this is where Keyshawn smiles with a big grin and says, listen, I know what you're going to ask me in the third question. What are my intentions? What is my intentions? Or what of being here and what I'm going to do? I just want to be here for fun, and I want to see what's happened next. Oh, and don't worry, I'm not going to kill none of your staff or your D class if they come in my, cell. Which, this is where Keyshawn, you could say, upper right, disappeared, which they're pretty much about to sound the alarm until they see Keyshawn create a new, you could say, place, or a new room for himself, and pretty much go in there. And pretty much says that he's going to be in, and leaves a note at the front of the door saying, if you want any more questions or need any help, just make sure to knock. Which the Foundation tells the higher-ups, which the higher-ups are saying, just keep an eye on him if he says what he is. Now, Keyshawn Uchiha is pretty much what comes out his room wherever he wants, and this is where he goes in the lunchroom where all the Class D's at and begins to sit down. Now, all the Class D's is looking at him, all quiet and stuff, which Keyshawn looks around and says, what are y'all looking at? Oh, is there something on my face? Which they're saying, no, not that. How are you here with us? Which this is where Keyshawn smiles and says, well, I heard y'all got lunch, so I came here to eat. Is it so wrong to eat? Which they all say no. Now, of course, the Class D's are all eating and stuff, and about to do their daily sign-ups and stuff and being in their cells or whatever. This is where Keyshawn Uchiha says, who wants to work for me as my side projects, as Project Zero, which the Class D's are all scared because they don't know. All they remember is, you could say, since all Class D's are getting experimenting on and most likely they don't come back, so, and they're all, you could say, kind of buddy with each other, they're realizing, like, what kind of Project Zero. This is where Keyshawn smiles and says, oh, it's quite simple. Y'all work for me, and I can make sure y'all live forever without dying or getting experimenting on by my protection. Now, of course, only two Class D's, and one is a female and one is a male, saying we do it because they're saying what the hell. Which Keyshawn smiles and says, okay, well, y'all come with me. And they pretty much walks with Keyshawn. Now, of course, the guards are pretty much saying, stop, don't move, which Keyshawn says, oh, please, y'all not gonna do nothing. And this is where we're gonna say, Alex, or Alexia, she pretty much, Dr. Alexia comes in and says, SCP-0, which Keyshawn looks up and says, oh, you already got a number for me. Which she pretty much says, you're not supposed to have the Class C without having higher order class. Which Keyshawn comes close to her face and smiles and says, oh, so you're telling me what to do then? Which she has a fake, pretty much scared, you could say shaking thing, saying yes. But you could say a little stuttering, yes. Now, this is where Keyshawn smiles and says, okay, well, I'm going to make sure to put a form down so they can work for me, because they're going to be my two Class D's. And don't you dare put them on any experiments, because I swear to God, if one of them die, I will make sure all your facilities never exist. And make sure y'all would never exist. Which Dr. Alexia begins to sweat and says, okay. Now, this is where Keyshawn smiles and says, okay, and begins to go. Now, this is where Dr. Alexia asks Keyshawn to do experiments and to see what he can do and stuff, to test him. Which Keyshawn says, okay, I'll show y'all what I can do. In exchange, y'all give me those Class Ds. Which Dr. Alexia says okay. Which the higher ups approve of it. To see what Keyshawn can do. Keyshawn Uchiha. Now as Keyshawn Uchiha is pretty much, showing them what they can do. He's pretty much creating little planets, also making life. Can bring stuff out of reality and stuff. Can bring other characters like Cloud and stuff from Final Fantasy, which, the Foundation also study video games. They realize he can bring characters to life from books, like Alice from Wonderland and stuff. Can also bring villains. Can also create creatures and stuff. And they also realize that he can disappear and reappear wherever he likes to freely. And apparently so he has all eyes and ears everywhere. Kind of like he's watching from a 3D platform. Now, this is where Dr. Ellis asks if they can test any weapons on him. Which, Keyshawn Uchiha looks down and says, "You want to test weapons on me?" And pretty much clinches this, which Dr. Alex begins to say, "No, nothing like that." Says, "Alright, let's play then." And Keyshawn Uchiha begins to, you could say, break open the door of the training thing. Now, this is where guards are firing bullets at him and stuff, and firing, missiles and stuff, and shooting high caliber sniper rounds and all that, And this is where Keyshawn is getting hit by them and saying, "Y'all said y'all wanted to test bullets. What, y'all thought I was about to destroy the facility or something?" "Oh, it's because it looked like I was mad. I'm sorry." Which Keyshawn, which he says. Which Dr. Alex, she is other same side of me saying, "Yes." Which Keyshawn says, "I like you, Dr. Alex. I think we're going to be great friends." And begins to head back into his room. Or you could say his little cell, but room. Now, this is where SCP, we're going to say the Plague Doctor, wants to see Keyshawn Uchiha. Which this is where they question Keyshawn Uchiha, having another question and asking questions. We're going to say only 3 questions. And saying, SCP-0, what is your relationship with the Plague Doctor? Or they say the numbers, which this is where Keyshawn looks at them and saying, "I have no relationship with him. Did he ask to see me? Because I have no relationship with him, so, hey, maybe we can be buddy-buddy." Now, this is where, they're asking some other questions saying, "Did you create our universe or create us?" Which, this is where Keyshawn Uchiha says, "I mean, if you're saying, yeah, I created y'all from nothing. And also, I've been watching y'all facility get created by, every way possible, including in a different universe and another universe. And there's a universe in the Shinobi universe where y'all are SCP Foundation, but y'all more secret, so y'all more in the backgrounds to handle other things instead of the main events. I saw y'all in Dragon Ball, but y'all was secreted there. Y'all meant to be secret, to protect the human race for the greater good. But you only let, you could say, the main protagonists do their job, so y'all do your own job." Now, this is where the SCP Foundation is saying, asking the last question, saying, are all SCP Foundation the same? Serve, protect. Which Keyshawn looks up at Dr. You could say Dr. Alice's eyes, and he comes close to her saying, "You tell me. Because in all the alternate universes, there is only one alternate universe where the SCP Foundation doesn't exist, and the world is in other chaos. Well, not in other chaos, but you could say it's more crazy than it should be, as creatures and monsters, and including that Plague Doctor y'all was talking about. The Plague Doctor is actually, you could say, a good guy, bringing the human race back to life that all died. And oh yeah, that burning flesh. Yeah, can y'all tell me something about that flesh? What does that do?" Which, this is where Dr. Alice says, "How do you know about that?" which this is where Keyshawn Uchida says, "Oh, you're not the only one. You're not the only one who can know about that thing. I've been seeing y'all, you could say, messing around with other alternate universes and seeing y'all Earth get destroyed a couple times, and y'all trying to keep this one alive, if I'm correct. But as long as y'all, stick with me, then I can keep y'all Earth safe and keep y'all from, ever dying." Now, this is where Dr. Alice saying, "That's enough for today," and goes off. Which Keyshawn says, "Can I go?" Which this is where the guards don't even try to, handcuff them, and just says, "Go back to your cell." Which Keyshawn gets up and says, "Alright." Now, this is where the Plague Doctor is asking, to see SCP-0. Which, this is where, the higher-ups are saying, trying to deny it, but they're saying, "Alright, let's see what happens, see if the Plague Doctor can kill him or something." Now, as Keyshawn's getting up and, going to the Plague Doctor, this is where they have the encounter sitting together. Now, this is where Keyshawn walks up to the Plague Doctor and gives him a handshake saying, "It's nice to meet you, Plague Doctor. I heard a lot about you. I've seen you do a lot of things." Talk about that plague, am I right? Which the Plague Doctor saying, "Yes." Pretty much saying yes without stuttering. And they're pretty much making the conversation. So this is where Keyshawn asks the Plague Doctor, "So, Plague, can you mind telling me, what do you see? Like, how can you see the scourge of the plague? Because, to me, I see no plague, but maybe it is a plague, and you're just waiting for the right moment to bring back the people, to cure them from the plague. Am I right?" Which the Plague Doctor is saying, "Maybe." Now, as Keyshawn she is talking to the Plague Doctor, this is where the Dr. Alice says, "Time is up. It's time to go back to your, cell, Plague Doctor." Which, this is where Keyshawn Uchida says, "Well, look like that's our time, but maybe we can have another talk, if we have it." Which he says, "I would like that." And they start going. Now, this is where you could say Keyshawn is in his room, and this is where you could say Dr. Alice has the picture of the Shy Guy. And because we're going to say the higher-ups wants to see what can really kill Keyshawn Uchida, or you could say SCP-0. Now, as Dr. Alice gives Keyshawn the photo of the Shy Guy, this is where he says, "Oh, what's this?" And looks, and he says, "Did you just show me the picture of the Shy Guy so he can come after me?" And this is where the Shy Guy begins to start running and breaking through doors, pushing everything out his way to go after Keyshawn. Now, as the Shy Guy is going in the room, this is where the Shy Guy looks at Keyshawn, and he begins to try to you could say, leap at Keyshawn, trying to eat him. Now, this is where Keyshawn grabs the Shy Guy and slams him down. And he begins to pick up the Shy Guy and gives the Shy Guy a hug, saying, There. I know why you're so angry, so shy, so sad. 1,000 eyes always watching you, and you just want to be alone, just want to be quiet." He begins to hug the Shy Guy. Now the Shy Guy begins to cry in the seat, shining now, and Keyshawn and Shy Guy sit beside each other while the Shy Guy lays on Keyshawn's shoulder. Now, this is where the guards grab the Shy Guy and, take him away. This is where, Dr. Alex asks, what did he do to, the SCP, which this is where Keyshawn, looks down and says, "I didn't do nothing to him. I just gave him love. And told him that I'm sorry, that he's just like that." Now, Dr. Alex begins to cry because we're going to say Keyshawn words can hit differently. Now, Keyshawn Uchida pretty much is in his room, and the Class D comes in. Now this is where Keyshawn is, having switch his room around and pretty much having into a professional, business room. And saying, the 2 Class D's they signed up for me. How y'all doing? Which they're saying, well, we're doing fine. And of course, there was some female. Now this is where Keyshawn stands up and says, well, I'm going to tell you the position which I need to do, but tell me about yourselves. Now, this is where one of the Class D says that she's a murderer who killed 12 men, 12 men with bullets, and pretty much was on the run until she got captured and put here. And this is where he goes to the Class D man, and asks his situation, which he said he was a war soldier until he got out and saw his wife cheating, and he killed his wife and the guy who was cheating with, and you could say was just doing a lot of stuff. Now, this is where Keyshawn Retreat says, damn, a bunch of sinners I see. Killing men and women? Which the Class D's are saying, pretty much looking down. Now this is where Keyshawn Retreat gets up and says, well, I do need killers, and I also need professional persons who can handle firearms and stuff. Can y'all handle firearms or any weapons and stuff? Which they're saying, yeah. Now this is where he slams his hand down to the desk and saying, well, I like to say y'all are hired. Y'all two are going to be my 2 personal guardians and my bodyguards. We will be training. Y'all will be training in the other dimension. And also, y'all will also learn how to use better firearms and stuff. And y'all will protect my room from these goddamn guards and these scientists, because they kept trying to come in my room and touch my shit. And every time they try to touch my shit, I always have to rechange it around. They're trying to get some stuff and trying to see what the hell I have. And y'all gonna be watching it over. And if they come in here and they try to touch my shit, I want y'all to personally whoop their ass. Not kill them, but whoop their ass. But if they try to fight you back or try to kill you, you bust a bullet in their head. Okay? Which the 2 Class C says okay. And they pretty much, Keyshawn snaps his finger and gives them a whole professional bodyguard outfit. And says, now these suits are professional bulletproof, so don't worry about getting cut or stabbed. Time for y'all to go into the dimension and get y'all training. Which, they reluctantly go in there. And they begin to get trained by the butler. Now, Keyshawn begins to, sits, you could say, sits his room around again and lays on the bed and saying, I like this place. Pretty much smiling and saying that. Now, as he's waking up the next day, you could say he gets out his room and begins to head out and you could say look into other rooms. Now this is where he sees you could say the SCP with This is where Keyshawn and Chia start walking. He sees a cell says SCP-053. And it's the little girl. Now, Keyshawn goes in there and he begins to see the scientist, which the scientist is saying what he's doing in here. Which Keyshawn says, oh, calm down. I'm not going to here kill you or do anything. I came here to look. What the hell is this? Which they begins to say, this is SCP-053, the little girl. So technically what she can do is, and then they begins to tell the file and stuff, show it to him, and she said, oh, so if any adult be by her, they begin to get mad and, commit suicide in front of her. Which they're saying, yeah. Now this is where Keyshawn opens up the cells and looks at the little girl, and he kneels down and says, hey, my name is Keyshawn. What's your name? And, she begins to say, the number, which not Deku, but Keyshawn says, so, is that your real name, or is you got another name? Which she says, I'm not allowed to say it, or you might kill yourself, which this is where Keyshawn Uchida says, oh, please, trust me, I got the willpower of 1,000 stars, you could say. Now tell me. Now, this is where the girl whispered to him and says, oh, so that's your name. Amazing. Well, do you want to play? Some toys or anything? Which she says, really? Which he says, yeah, let's play. And begins to start playing. Now, this is where Dr. Janet begins to get nervous and start to worry because the Foundation or the higher up says if she lose track of him or if he gets out of control or anything, they're going to terminate her. And we all know what terminate means. Shot in the face. But this is where Janet is getting nervous and she begins to run around saying, where the hell is SCP-0, which they say he's in SCP-053 room, which she sees there that Keisha she is playing with the little girl and having a good time and laughing. Now this is where he looks and says, "Oh, Dr. Janet, hey," and begins to say, "I'll play with you later, okay?" And she says, "Okay," and he begins to get up. Now, as Keisha is going out the cell, this is where he talks to Dr. Janet and says, "Oh, you came looking for me?" Which she says, "You can't be leaving your cell like that and not telling me." Which this is where Keisha Chia does a frown and looks down and says, I know why you're scared." And she says, "You don't know." Which this is where Keisha Chia smiles and says, "Oh, I do. If you lose track of me or if I go crazy and have this facility go down to hell, they're going to terminate you and make sure you're dead. Am I right?" Which this is where Dr. Janet shivers with fear. Now this is where Keisha begins to does a laugh and says, "Don't worry, they're not going to kill you, and I'm not going to make this facility turn down to hell. Okay? So if you want me to, calm down and not go out without your permission, and you want to be by my side, so you can keep all eyes on me instead of having these shitty guards watch over me, then fine. Let's go then." And he begins to grab Dr. Bright's hand and pretty much, grabs it and walks with her, saying, "You're going to have to show me the other SCPs, since you don't want to get killed." Now, this is where Dr. Alice begins to show Keisha Chia some SCPs, like SCP-0553 and all of them and stuff, and saying that we have more, which Keisha Chia is saying, well, I guess I see some other SCPs later on, and begins to head back. Now, as he's headed back in his room, this is where he tells Dr. Alice that he's going to be in here for like 5 days, because he got some stuff to do. And she says, okay. Now, as he's going in there, this is where his two, you could say, Class D's comes out, and their hair is much longer. The male has a beard, and not a gray beard, but a beard and long hair, and the female has long hair. And they're pretty much kneeling down to him and saying, "We're at your service," which this is where Keisha Uchiha begins to smile and says, look like he trained y'all well. So, how was y'all new life? Living in the free instead of being in the cell. Which they're saying, we saw everything. Life, death, everything. We have nothing to fear anymore. Which, this is where Keisha Uchiha smiles and says, alright, well, y'all can go have fun and stuff, since I give y'all this 2 blessing. And taps on both of their heads and saying, I'll let y'all teleport. So y'all can teleport out this facility and stuff, but remember, always protect me at all times. Well, excuse me, I'm going to be going to my counselor and stuff. Which they're saying, but ain't Dr. Alice going to be watching over you and cameras and stuff? Which Keisha says, oh, don't worry about it. I can just make a second clone of me. Look like biology and will stay in the cell. He's going to be a little bit weaker, but he's going to be in the kid form. He's going to be in the kid form, and I'm just going to tell Dr. Alice that I'm the kid. That at occasion I have weakness that turn into a kid, and I do childish things and stuff. And it begins to, mess up the cameras for a couple bit, and Keishan has his doppelganger, or you could say his little kid self, be in the cell while he goes back up into the galaxy table along with the other guys. Now, Dr. Alice goes and begins to knock on the door saying, what the hell, why are you a kid? Which is where Kid Keishan begins to say, oh, well, you see, I have a weakness where if I do, once in 1,000 years, I turn into a kid, and I have to wait for another year to turn back. Which she says, huh, okay. And this is where Dr. Alex asks, okay, then can you do any of your powers you can do? Which Kid Keyshawn says, not all of them. I can't teleport or, and I'm not invincible and stuff, so I could, die and stuff. Which she says, okay. Which this is where Kid Keyshawn says, well, can I go back in my room now? Which Dr. Alex says, of course. And she begins to wrestle little Keyshawn's head, which he says, can you stop that? And begins to walk. Now, this is where, Brother Keyshawn is up at the round table, talking to the gods and saying, alright, so what I miss? Now, this is part 1 of What If I Was in the SCP Foundation. If y'all guys enjoy, leave a like and do all that stuff. But I'm Keyshawn Chia. Thanks for watching, and peace out.
Looks like you lost another one.